For waterfront parking lots, Barrie is going to replace hand tags with digital parking permits via the Hotspot app. There are 10 parking lots where Barrie residents can park their vehicles for free. Once it is available, residents can get their vehicles registered online or using a Service Barrie location. There is no limit on the number of vehicles one household can register, and permit will have to be renewed every 2 years. The city launched Hotspot for daily and hourly parking last year, and since then 15,000 accounts have been created. The pilot project for the residential permit was done in the Allandale neighborhood. Use the timestamp to navigate through the video.
The presentation section, which is a presentation on the waterfront parking permit update. I'd like to call Brent Forsyth, Director of Parking and Strategy and Parking Strategy, to provide the presentation.
So again, thanks committee members for being here tonight. We are presenting the waterfront parking permit, and we're seeking your feedback and approvals with our plan to digitalize the program. Next slide. Again, as we know, the parking program is a very popular program with our residents and would benefit from the digital solution, which we are suggesting to use Hotspot. And just a quick reminder that we launched Hotspot for our daily and hourly parking almost a year ago. And since then, we've expanded to monthly and annual parking passes in the downtown. And most recently launched it with a residential permit in the Allandale neighborhood. And it has been extremely successful to date with over 15,000 accounts created to date. We are planning to launch the digital solution for the waterfront pass this summer. And similar to the Allandale resident parking pass, property owners can request a waterfront parking pass through the Hotspot app or the website by uploading vehicle registration and a proof of residency documentation, where staff will then validate and activate the permit in the system. And it is important that they upload both a proof of residency and the vehicle registration, as it ties the permit to a specific license plate number, ensuring the vehicle is registered to a Barrie address. For those without internet or mobile phone access or unwilling to upload their documentation, they will be able to bring their documentation into Service Barrie, who will be able to set them up directly in Hotspot. And then just from a benefit standpoint, so obviously the customer service benefits probably speak for themselves through the self-service model, improving access, reducing wait times, and offering residents a contactless payment option. And then from an administrative standpoint too, reducing time spent by Service Barrie on waterfront parking, allowing them to focus on other service areas. And there's also synergies with our enforcement, who are already using the Hotspot enforcement platform. And then obviously from the control standpoint, limiting the misuse of hang tags, as we've seen throughout the years, will enable improved controls through the validation process. Next slide, please. So as we move to a digital solution, our program parameters will need to be updated. And so as this is a very popular program amongst our residents, as I've said, I thought it would be important to note that one of our overarching goals with this is to remain flexible, especially in the initial stages with the program. And you'll see that throughout our recommendations. And over the years, as the program matures and evolves, we can consider further enhancements to the program. So from a quantity standpoint, as mentioned previously, we are moving to a validation process. And so we are recommending that there be no limits on the number of permits per household, as the validation process actually controls the misuse by ensuring the vehicles are registered to Barrie address. This will allow property owners to register each of their vehicles so they do not have the extra hassle of having to transfer hang tags between vehicles. And also to note that once registered, the digital permit cannot be transferred to another vehicle. From the cost standpoint, the permits will still be provided at no cost. However, we're recommending that we no longer charge the $20 for the additional permit. Under the current hang tag program, property owners are not required to purchase a pass for the third and fourth vehicle. They can simply transfer their hang tag between vehicles. Whereas the proposed solution, again, ties the individual permit to license plate numbers. And again, the validation process ensures vehicles are registered to Barrie addresses. When we look at expiration, under the current program, the hang tags are valid in perpetuity, with the disclaimer that passes would be valid until a new program is released. So with the move to the digital solution, we are recommending the elimination of hang tags in the long run. In pending council approval and beginning this summer, we are not planning to issue any further hang tags, and are recommending that the validity of the existing hang tags expire as of December 31st, 2023. We will have a strong communications to message these dates, but it gives residents almost 2 years to transition to the digital permit. Sorry, excuse me. Additionally, as it relates to the expiration, we're also recommending that the new digital permit have a 2-year calendar year expiry, where property owners need to reply only every 2 years. This helps ensure current Barrie residents are holders of the permit and would only require them to renew every 2nd year. And then additionally, we are looking, as you launch a new program, we are looking to ensure that, you know, we provide the most flexible and accommodating program to residents. And so by granting access, the Executive Director of Access Barrie and the Director of Transit Parking with delegated authority to issue permits in exceptional scenarios and also minor cost neutral program changes. Some of these examples could include approving a digital permit for a student living in Barrie that's using their parent's car that has an address outside of Barrie, or a software update that provides features to enable efficiencies. And then just lastly, to note on the non-resident waterfront passes, the program will stay the same, where the cost is $90 for residents in adjacent municipalities and $130 for residents outside of that area. The digital permit will still have a one calendar year expiration, but we're going to move fully away from the hangtags, and it'll be fully digital for non-residents as of January 1st, 2023. And again, just as a reminder, for those without internet access or mobile phone access or unwilling to provide their proof of residency, they will be able to bring that documentation into Service Barrie, who will set them up in Hotspot, and that goes for both residents and non-residents. Next slide, please. And then just as a reminder, last year, Council directed staff to administer a Friends and Family Pass pilot running from June to September in the spillover waterfront parking areas. Each household in these areas were entitled to 5 free passes that were valid for one-time usage through a scratch hang tag program permit. The program expired on September 15th of 2021. Last year, only 7% of the eligible households requested the passes, and utilization surveys conducted throughout the summer found that the passes were only used 6 times out of the 4,300 cars that were surveyed. Unfortunately, there isn't a current digital option available for administering the program, so maintaining the pilot would require the same hang tag process. And based on the low uptake, staff are not recommending the continuance of this program. So next slide, please. So we're currently working with Hotspot on the final stages of development of the digital waterfront permit. And once our testing is complete, we will be able to solidify the spring launch date, which we will communicate to Council via memo, as well as execute our thorough communication plan with our residents. Next slide, please. And again, I'd like to thank you for your time and be happy to answer any questions you may have. And thank you, Mr. Forsyth.
Thank you, Mr. Forsyth, for that presentation. Questions, comments? I saw Councillor Thomson first, then Councillor Harvey. Go ahead, Councillor Thomson.
Thanks. Through you, Chair, to Brent. Great presentation. It looks like you guys have put a lot of research and study into this, and it's a very clean transition. Just a quick question. Is there a reason why you chose a 2-year window on the hang tags to expire December 31st? Like, you don't think after the summer of 2022 there would be enough time to communicate this to residents to change over, so it would be December 31st of 2022 instead of, like, with the I think there's maybe a possibility of a lost revenue with, I register my car and then somebody could give the pass away. So I was just, unless there was, because you guys are still working out and installing it in cars and stuff like that, I just was wondering why that was the chosen date.
Sorry, can I? Yeah. Thanks for the question, Councillor Thomson. And essentially the answer, I mean, there's a few pieces to it. One, with launching a new program, I mean, there will be lessons learned. We'll probably learn over the course of the next 6 to 9 months. And, you know, depending on what that change would look like, understanding Council may be in lame duck here for the remainder of the year. Once we've launched the program, there may be limitations in terms of what changes we can make. So we were really looking at it like extending it to 2023 to mitigate those, to kind of work through some of those issues we may have. But you are absolutely correct that the sooner we launch the digital permit and improve those, controls, the sooner we probably limit the misuse, and there could be a revenue impact. However, it is very difficult to quantify, as I'm sure you would probably understand.
Councillor Thomson, I was just going to add in that we also, we're not able to estimate the impact on Service Barrie because we're not really sure how many people are going to want Service Barrie to register them through Hotspot. And so that was another reason that we thought, just from the demands of the limited customer service, that we weren't sure how long that would take. So just to kind of explain to the committee how that would work. So a resident would provide their proof to the Service Barrie agent, who would basically do all the back end of the Service Barrie back end of Hotspot for them, and then the resident would get like a receipt that says you're registered, and it will last until the 2-year period, and then they wouldn't have to do anything. So it'd be very seamless, but it's something that we think we might get a lot of requests for from certain demographics, and we just weren't sure what that impact would be on Service Barrie.
Perfect, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate the answer. Like I said, the report and the program, I look forward. Through you, Chair, just a question maybe to Councillor Jim Harris, who has the pilot project. I was just wondering if you had any feedback from residents and stuff.
Councillor Harris.
Thanks, Councillor Thomson. Well, I know there was great excitement about being able to have this pilot. And I really thank Mr. Forsyth for entertaining my request to pilot in Allandale. I'm very grateful for that. But to be fair, I have not had residents reaching out to me to say, hey, and it didn't come up. We had a town hall last week, and I never thought to ask, but it certainly hasn't been brought to my attention either directly or through email or calls, or even our town hall didn't come up. So maybe staff, I see hands going up, so maybe they have, which would be great.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair Morales. We have had very low pickup in the Allandale pilot area with, I think there was over 300 eligible residents, and there was like less than 20 that have actually registered it. So that's another reason that we think we need that longer duration for this broader pilot, is that we need to do a lot more communications to try to encourage this transition. And perhaps people aren't as eager to jump on it yet because there's not the demand from the spillover at the station, right? And there will be soon as people are heading back into Toronto for office work. So that's another reason that was part of our consideration.
Yeah, I was just going to add, thank you. That is the factor that solicited the parking restriction that people wanted to have the confirmation that they were exempt from. It doesn't exist right now. So with the pressure gone, the motivation to sign up for the program is gone. So thank you, Mr. James Reed. That's exactly accurate. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Morales. That's all. Thank you to the staff.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody. Councillor Harvey, and then Deputy Mayor Ward.
Thanks, Chair Morales, and thanks for the presentation. Excited to see the direction that we're going and the expansion as quickly as we've seen since the kickoff of the pilot. I guess I've just got two questions. When it comes to the information that people have to provide, with it saying that requires proof of residency and vehicle ownership, what type of proof of residency are we looking for people to provide?
So we're going to be flexible with that, and the details will be provided in the documents online and stuff like that. But anything from a water bill to their tax bill to a bill that shows that they are a resident in Barrie. And again, with some of the scenarios we've already seen with our previous program, because you do have to provide that, you currently do have to provide that proof of residency. We have been very flexible with, like, for example, students, who are new to Barrie or here for, a year, or a couple of years. So they may not have some of those. So we try to be as flexible as we can. So. Okay,
thanks. Yeah, because like I did have a resident reach out to me today, quite excited the fact that it's not limited to just 2 vehicles. But I guess some of my other concern would be the potential ease of abuse of the program too, especially when we get into, let's say, somebody claiming that they're a tenant in the city, and obviously their name wouldn't be on a property tax bill or a water bill potentially. I think we just have to obviously, it's great to be lenient, but on the other end, we got to watch that we don't have a lot of vehicles. Like, I mean, would at bare minimum, would the vehicle have to be, the ownership be registered here to a Barrie address if they can't provide proof of residency in another form? I'm just concerned that we could see some abuse with this, where we're going to see a significant amount sometimes attached to any one address.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. And I think that's one of the reasons that we're suggesting delegated authority for us, is to try to make those decisions. And to your point, Councillor Harvey, if we are seeing significant abuse over time, maybe there is ways we need to tighten the program. But we do see it kind of going both ways, where you could have somebody who has a proof of residency in Barrie, but their vehicle is registered to, let's say, their parent who lives in another municipality. So we could see it both ways. And so we're trying to, again, as we launch this, be very reasonable. And if we do see those abuses, as you've highlighted, then we would come back to council and probably have to tighten the program up if we thought it was having an overwhelming impact, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because actually when it comes to that exact scenario that you just spoke about, vehicles being registered in a different municipality, sometimes it could be for legit reasons if they're, let's say, a student here for a couple of years at Georgian. However, it is very well known that some do that because different postal codes have cheaper insurance, and they will have their vehicles registered in a different municipality for that exact reason. And typically the further north you go, the cheaper it tends to get. But and then the last piece would be, is this something that people are going to have to register annually or biannually? Because I guess the other piece I have a little bit of concern about, tenants come and go, and let's say they live at a residence here in Barrie for a 1-year period. Now their license plate is registered in the system potentially indefinitely, and just opens the door for a little bit more misuse. I guess I'm just looking at it from the other end, because I just don't want to see a significant loss of revenue with abuse of the system too.
Yeah, no, thank you for the question, Councillor. I mean, you're absolutely right. What we've done is we've set it up to be right now on 2 years. Again, we're trying to find a middle ground with whether we did it every year or every 2 years, because residents themselves, whether they're, long-term residents may not want to do it every year. So we're kind of trying to find middle ground, and we're suggesting they had to do it every 2 years. So there could be that potential that somebody registers, get it, 6 months later, they move out. They would have it for another 18 months. And there's really not much we can do on that. But that is our recommendation at this point. I mean, again, it's one of those things over time, if we see that kind of, it'd be hard for us to track that abuse, but if we see that being an issue and we see the pressures on our waterfront, because we already know there are a lot of pressures for parking at the waterfront, especially in the summers on the weekends, that we could look at tightening that up at some point in the future too.
Councillor Harvey, I was going to also add in that the system today, as I know you are aware of, has a lot of holes in it as well, and that a resident pass doesn't expire. So you could have that situation where somebody's renting and then they leave and move to a neighboring municipality and keep the pass. In fact, we know that we see those passes in other communities in our surrounding area. So we feel that this proposed plan is actually going to be a little tighter than the one we had previously.
Great, thank you. Yeah, just look interested to see how it all works out. And obviously it can obviously pivot as need be down the road.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Great questions. It pays to have somebody with an acumen for those questions on council. Deputy Mayor Ward.
Thank you, Chairman Morales. First of all, can you hear me? Yep. Okay. I just had a couple of questions, and one is, I've never used the hotspot. I take it you just drive into the parking lot and you're covered. You don't have to driver doesn't have to do anything when they get there, do they?
That's correct. Once you've registered your plate, they drive and that's it. You do one-time registration. You don't have to activate it when you get in the spot or anything. It's there for the 2 years. Okay.
Second question was, I mean, one of the advantages of the tag, you can actually read the back of it to see if you're in a lot that it's free, or with that. And I haven't been down to look. Are they well signed? Are they going to be better signed so drivers go in, they know this is a lot that's covered? Because I know there's a lot of confusion out there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Rebecca. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor Ward. There is as you know, a big project going on right now, the wayfinding signage project, and that's a big collaborative project that the Economic Development team is leading, and Brent and I are part of that, as well as is the BIA and the Tourism Barrie. So there's going to be a huge effort to improve that signage, because there is a lot of confusion as to which one is a valid parking lot or not. So I'm not sure the exact timing for the implementation of that. It might not be for this summer, but certainly that's planned in the next over the next year.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Any members of committee have questions? Nope. Non-members committee, go ahead, Councillor Aylwin.
Thank you, Councillor Morales, and thank you, Mr. Forsyth and Ms. James Reid, for presenting on this. Excuse me. My question relates to the Hotspot app, and I'm sorry, this information was probably in an earlier report about Hotspot when we implemented that. But with the recent issue that we had with the city's Ping Street app, do we have any concerns around longevity of this app, or I'm assuming we have things built into our contract around the Hotspot, and I'm wondering if you can maybe speak to that a little bit.
Maybe I'll start, and then Brent could jump in. I think this situation is very different than Pink Street. This app was recently procured, and we have a 5-year contract with the ability to extend that contract. So we're pretty confident that we won't run into those same problems. And then should council ratify the motion from last night and we proceed with a new app, there is an ability to easily link the two. So there would be a button on our mobile app that would take us to all our other apps, and it would quickly link you in. And if you've already registered for Hotspot, you just go right into Hotspot. And if not, it would give you where to download it. So it would be very seamless. And maybe Brent can speak to some of the more details if he has more.
Thanks, Rebecca. And yeah, I was just going to add, Rebecca mentioned the term. We do actually have language in our contract that lets us extend up to 10 years. That is one of our considerations, because as you roll this out, you don't want to be changing the app every 2 years, and the customers and the residents needing to learn a new app. So, assuming everything's going well and whatever else, we do have the ability to extend it much further. So that was probably the other one I would add.
That's great. Thank you so much. And just this morning at the Active Transportation Committee, we had a presentation from Rod McDonald, our Tourism Development Coordinator, about the wayfinding strategy. And he was projecting installation in 2023. So very excited about all of that work going on. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Aylwin. Any other questions or comments? Seeing that, I've got a couple. I'll start with Mr. Forsyth. Is there an ability for landlords themselves to maybe deregister a plate for a legacy tenant that has maybe moved out? So let's say the tenant doesn't do it proactively. That's great. If they can prove that they own the property, and if they can provide that documentation somewhat easily, look, this is the N11 they signed out when they moved out, et cetera, that maybe. I don't want it to be abused. I don't want landlords to be using that in an aggressive way, but in a way that is reasonable. Could they do that, or is it just better for the plates to sit there, and if it ever becomes an issue, they can always address it on an ad hoc basis?
Thanks for the question, Councilor Morales. And no, unfortunately, there's not the ability to do that by another party. There is we did work through the Privacy Commissioner and with our records group here in terms of what we upload and how long we keep it for and when we delete it and stuff. So we wouldn't be able to unfortunately do that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Fair enough. What I'm sure if that becomes an issue, we can address it at that time, right? This is an evolving program.
Yeah.
And then I'll also, this might be a Ms. James Reid question, but either of you, whoever wants to take it, could we look into partnering with Service Ontario about utilizing their point of contact to get people to uptake this? What I mean by that is there's an entire service out there where people go for other services, but to get renew their license plates and get their stickers, maybe not pay for them in the future. I don't know what's going on with that. But if we can take advantage of that culture, that point of contact, that structure, that marketing support, and essentially have a partnership where they're already doing that, and they either get the piece of paper saying go to the city website, or Obviously, it's probably it's probably unreasonable to assume that they could do it in the system on spot for us. That's probably a broader conversation, but at the very least, have the piece of paper that when they're getting their receipt, their plates, or whatever, they're also getting our information. It would incredibly increase our uptake on this. Again, I know province and partnerships, those things take time, but is that something that we can look into?
Thank you, Chair Morales. We can certainly look into it. My instinct is that it's going to take longer to have that happen than we could when we're in control of our communications. So there's lots of ways that we can get this out to our residents, obviously through our water bills, through all our own channels to make sure that our residents know about this program. And because we have a long transition period, it'll also give us some opportunity to really be out there and communicate to our residents. But we could certainly look into it. In the past, we've looked at other partnership opportunities with Service Ontario, and it hasn't really kicked off the ground because it's a much bigger organization that they have to get approvals for, and we would just be one municipality. But we could certainly start the conversation, but I'm not totally confident that they would proceed that way. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Anybody else have any questions or further comments? Members of committee or members of or Councillor Aylwin? Councillor Natalie Harris, you're on the committee. No, you're just okay. Two. We've got two tonight. Okay, perfect. Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Forsyth, for the presentation. We're going to move up the agenda item 6.1, which is the report of finance and corporate services dated today concerning the waterfront parking permit upgrade, so that members of committee and members of council can essentially, we can consider it with this now. The recommendation is as follows: that the digital waterfront parking permit be made available through the Hotspot app and website as outlined below. A, issued on a per vehicle basis. B, no limit to the number of permits that can be issued per municipal address. C, cost for permits will remain the same as the current hang tags, except Barrie residents will not be charged $20 for third and subsequent permits. And D, resident permits will be valid for 2 calendar years. And then section 2 reads that existing resident waterfront hang tags issued since 2017 that did not have a set term until a new program is released will now expire December 31st, 2023, and that staff will transition away from issuing new hang tags ahead of the summer of 2022. Section 3, that the Executive Director of Access Barrie and the Director of Transit and Parking be delegated the authority to issue waterfront parking permits in exceptional scenarios and implement minor cost-neutral program adjustments to enable staff with the ability to provide an enhanced customer experience as this digital program is launched. And can I have a member of committee place that motion that I just read out loud on the floor? Placed by Councillor, or moved by Councillor Harvey, seconded by Councillor Thomson. Any questions or comments on the motion on the floor as read out loud? Nope. Councillor Jim Harris, could you take the chairmanship just for a quick second? I'm just going to move a quick amendment, the digital one. I'm just going to move a quick one. So I virtually hand that to you. So I'm just putting this on the floor. If I could get a seconder, at least for the purposes of putting on the floor. And then to add to section 3, either a section B or maybe just a paragraph, that the city approach Service Ontario and our 2 MPP offices about possible partnerships with Service Ontario to issue the city waterfront hang tags information when residents renew their plates. And I don't believe I actually need a seconder at committee. Perfect. So that is on the floor, the amendment. I'm not the chair for the purposes of the discussion. Councillor Jim Harris.
Yeah, so Councillor Morales, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, I can. I think there's a good opportunity. People are already going in for that purpose. I presume it's complicated. I do want at least the discussion to happen. I know our, whoever our MPPs are, I know that's what they're there for. Specifically, their offices, right? To have this discussion, to connect us with the right people at Service Ontario. If we get the no, we get the no. Or if it's something that they say, hey, you know what, you guys can leave your brochures here, and residents can proactively take them, but maybe staff can't issue them. Maybe it's a union thing. Who knows what the answer might be on that. I think it's worth the discussion. I don't foresee that it would be too much time on our staff to at least pursue the process. And I think it would be the right point of contact, since people are already there specifically in those encounters for license plate renewals and recertification and sorts. So that's really it.
Great, thank you. Any questions, comments from committee members? I think I saw Councillor Harvey. Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thanks. Stand-in Chair Harris. I guess my only concern about this is the government's already announced that they're stopping the renewal of validation stickers. So you're not going to get the flow of people renewing their plates on an annualized basis. You're only going to get a small amount of people that are going in when they need, let's say, a new license plate or not. So, like, I mean, I support the intent of this, but it's not going to attract the volume of people or the attention that it would have previous to the current legislation that they just changed. Now, obviously, that could change if the government changes, but I just wanted to add that in just for some context from my point. But I will support it with its intent.
Okay, thanks for Councillor Harvey. Any other members of the committee like to question or comment on the amendment? Seeing none, so members, non-members of the committee, would you like to comment on the amendment? Okay, and is everybody just, it was a lot there, and you don't have it written in front of us. Is anybody comfortable with the amendment? We all have it. Basically, I don't know if Ms. Cook can, or maybe Chair Morales wants to just reread that, if that would be sufficient for everybody.
Absolutely. And I'm sending it to the clerk now for record purposes, that the city approach Service Ontario and or our two MPP offices about partnering with Service Ontario to issue the city waterfront hang tag information when residents renew their plates.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Morales. I don't see any other comments. So I would just say I echo Councillor Harvey's. I mean, you know, the intention is good. The uptake, we'll find out. So with that noted, happy to take the vote. So those in favor of the amendment as shared by Councillor Morales, please indicate. Okay. Looks like it passes unanimously. Thank you. I pass the chair back to you, Mr. Councillor Morales.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Jim Harris. Okay, so the motion as amended is on the floor. The same read that we had before with the amendment. Any questions or comments? Nope. Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate. As am I. Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody, for that discussion, and thank you, staff, for the presentation and the innovation from your department in making this a fun, seamless process.